Hello and welcome to PlayStation Access. My name's Rob, and once I snapped a copy of Street Fighter 4 in half and put it in a bin. There, I've said it, now that's out in the open. I'm the one who'll be taking you through this list of the 10 best fighting games on PS4. As always, these games are presented in no particular order. In fact, just this once they've all graciously agreed to put down their weapons and, for the briefest of moments, commune together in harmony. This video is like those story cutscenes in Tekken, where two characters just stroll around chatting under cherry blossoms and discover they've been brother and sister all along or something. A rare moment of peace before the clickety-clack of fight sticks taking an absolute pounding begins again. These lulls never last though, so let's get on with it before Nathan finds a way to mention that he got the Platinum Trophy in Tekken 7. Well, would you look at that? First on our top 10 fighting games list is Tekken 7, the latest in a long line of fluid, balletic, oh my god, stop using that saying kick on me Nathan games that date back to the original PS1. And just by the way, Nathan would like you to know that he's got the Platinum Trophy in it. Whereas Street Fighter started out as a 2D fighter and its timing still hark back to the days of counting individual static frames, Tekken was always glorious 3D, and you really get a sense of that extra dimension being baked into its heritage in the bob and sway of its characters. Launch someone off the ground and they are up there for ages to be juggled mercilessly until they hit the ground in a cloud of dust, like a sad, deflated balloon with a really complicated family tree. Tekken 7 not only summons a feeling of litheness to control that arguably matches the venerable Tekken 3, it also introduces a lot of new mechanics, like the Power Crush, or the Screw Hit, or the Rage Art. Before Tekken 7, Rage Art was something I did after playing too much Crash Team Racing with my sister, so it feels good to attach a more positive meaning now. It basically means a special attack gained when your health is so low that you've become almost supernaturally angry. So that's nice. Time for some weaponized beating people up now with Soul Calibur 6. You'd think introducing staffs, swords and shields into a 3D fighter would turn it into a lumbering, inertia-filled bludgeon fest. But since its earliest incarnations, Soul Calibur has always had a uniquely slinky, flowing quality. You know, it's a cliche to liken video game combat to a tightly choreographed dance, but I really think it's appropriate here. I mean, look at it, in full flow, and with two players who know what they are doing. I'd argue that in motion, no fighting game series looks as beautiful as Soul Calibur. There's a finesse and a grace to every movement that mean battles often look like something lifted straight out of the Matrix. You know, this is a game about looking good as much as it is about winning, especially when it's a fight between Geralt and Mitsurugi, you know, Battle of the Dreamboats.
Has taken a shine to me, looks like.
My favourite thing about Soul Calibur 6 is the reversal edge system, however, which basically turns counters into an impossibly tense game of rock, paper, scissors, depending on your counter stance. When you win, well done you successfully got into your opponent's head. And when you lose, well, you're not going to beat yourself up about a totally random game of rock, paper, scissors, are you? No. While the characters in most fighting games can often feel like a rare breed of superhero, able to shrug off fireballs and broken torsos like they're nothing, the roster of UFC 3, the next entry on this list, is entirely different. Look how wobbly and fragile they all look. I mean, yes, I'd still hurriedly apologise to any of this lot if I accidentally knocked over their drink in a bar. It's more that in rendering the human body in such physical and graphical detail, UFC 3 is reminding you that these are actual people. These aren't Street Fighter punches, it's a man using his fists to make a bull and then hurling them at bone and flesh. Instead of the cartoonish impact of a fantasy uppercut, these blows make a sickening slap when they connect. And it's not just a health bar going down, it's realistic bruising appearing on the areas you're targeting. Honestly, I'd almost feel bad about this, except there's so much heft to the controls, such a satisfying weight to it all, that I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep doing this until he falls over because he's in too much pain to stand. and then I'm going to kneel on top of him, punching his head again and again and again until he passes out. UFC 3.
Fight.
Mortal Kombat 11 is next up, the latest instalment in yet another classic series that feels like the fighting game taken to its most visceral conclusion. By the end of each round, the losing character is basically dismantled like an action man owned by Toy Story's Sid Phillips, every surface covered in a thick layer of what I tell my daughter is blackberry jam whenever she comes in the room while I'm playing. But really, these over-the-top fatalities are almost satirical in their gratuity. You know, they've shot past really, really bloody on the Goro scale and come all the way back round to comical again. Yes, there's a whip-fast and gloriously crunchy fighting game to enjoy here, but what you want by the end of it is to look at your opponent being eviscerated so badly they're probably dead in the afterlife too. I mean, just look at that. Ooh!
Fatality.
KO indeed. These fatalities are the iconic, meme-worthy gratification you want after winning against your friend. That cry of
Finish him.
The fighting game equivalent of "you may now seal your marriage with a kiss." You know, congratulations, we're all watching, make this look good.
Fatality.
Arc System Works really know what they're doing. They are the studio behind basically every great 2D fighting game since the formation of Pangaea, including about 700 BlazBlue and Guilty Gear titles, and the wonderful Persona 4 Arena. Let's see you in the comments if you remember that one. Anyway, you hand them the Dragon Ball license and you know they're going to make an intimidatingly good fighter. Except for all this bombast on screen, you know, all the effects and 7 flipping health bars, it's not intimidating, not really. There are just 4 basic attack inputs here, and pulling off a special move isn't like dialing someone's phone number into your pad. It's actually deceptively simple, which is another way of saying it's really good at making you feel empowered and super competent at fighting games even when you're just hitting light punch 30 consecutive times. The results are spectacular. A Dragon Ball Z game that truly looks and feels like playing the anime. All supersonic punch flurries, over-the-top power-ups, and special moves that cut into the action with gloriously cinematic exuberance. Plus the thrill of taking characters who never fought with or against each other in the show, or of course replaying iconic matchups that did, is a novelty that to this day has not worn off. Next up is Street Fighter V, a game you've either devoted your entire life to mastering in all its depth, or wish you had instead of snapping the disc in half and chucking it in the bin for your bemused housemate to find later that day. It's such a clean, readable fighter, full of dramatic split-second pauses that the pros use to figure out each other's game plans and mentally queue up the next string of impossibly complex inputs, and that the rest of us just like to look at. It's been on a bit of a journey, has Street Fighter V, and with this Champion Edition, an enormous roster is brought together from loads of previous DLC, with an absolute treasure chest of costumes, modes, battle challenges, and concept art to lose yourself in. Bottom line, Street Fighter V Champion Edition is a classy, meticulous brawler, the fighting game's fighting game, a title that rewards perseverance and where, if you put in the time, you absolutely won't get beaten by a button-bashing noob, especially if that button-bashing noob is me. Our next entry, Injustice 2, has more capes than an episode of Cribs with Dracula, and is also a fantastic scientific tool for solving arguments like who'd win in a fight between Wonder Woman and Harley Quinn, even though we all know the answer is Wonder Woman because obviously. It's got a multiverse mode that basically turns the core premise of superheroes absolutely leathering each other into a sort of RPG light, all upgrading stats and finding better gear. The roster is absolutely enormous and even includes those DC characters who sound like they were named by competition winners, you know, Captain Cold and Grid. You know, the ones only real fans know about, and they're all belting each other with real depth and sophistication. This is a 20-hit combo sort of game, and you'll need to study it like it's a PhD in fisticuffs if you want to properly master it. And you will, because look how beautiful it is in motion, a smooth, impactful fighter with the kind of reverence for its source material that will delight DC fans, but not so much reverence it doesn't let you smash your favourite superheroes together like a kid chucking action figures around their bedroom.
The Flash wins.
Our next entry is Ultimate Marvel vs Capcom 3, and holy crossover was this a belter when the original arrived on PS3 in 2011. Now it's Ultimate and on PS4, so naturally is even better. This being a Capcom fighter, the DNA has a lot of Street Fighter about it, in that stuttering pace and resolutely 2D plane, even though the characters and environments are very much in 3D. See, kids? Bet you didn't know we had 3D in 2011, did you? But then there are these totally over-the-top supers and characters pulling off 20-hit combos as par for the course. Amaterasu from Okami wailing on Dead Rising's Frank West like that's a perfectly rational fight to be having. No, this isn't a disciplined Street Fighter acolyte, it's a fighting game soaked to the skin in superheroic bombast, one trying its damnedest to make every single frame more intense and attention-commanding than the last.
Player one wins. 3, 2, 1, brawl!
It's Brawlhalla's turn to make an appearance next, and what a deceptive rabbit hole of dodge cancels and glowing energy swords it is too. Unlike the other games on this list, it's not quite a straight fighting game, it's more of a fighting platformer. You know, characters get lighter the more damage they take, until eventually someone yeets them off the level completely. Which sounds easy, doesn't it? It sounds like something to spend an afternoon on before remembering that Rocket League exists and going immediately back to that. But there's something to the multi-layered arenas and the controls, tuned as precisely as the inner workings of a fine antique clock, that makes you say to yourself, no, I'm not going to just give up on this. Yes, it's going to hurt, and yes, it's quite intimidating that the community seems to recognise every individual frame of every move, but I'm going to put in the graft, because that's how the most satisfying moments in all of gaming are achieved. Also, it's free, but mainly all that stuff about putting in the graft. Finally, on our list of brilliant fighting games comes Nidhogg 2, and while it might not have the sheer mechanical complexity of a Tekken or a Street Fighter, it's basically just lopping bits off each other with a sword until someone breaks their pad and leaves the room swearing, it does have a unique capacity for building tension. Momentum seems to sway this way and that as one player goes on a streak of kills, nears the endpoint they need to reach in order to win the round, then gets pegged back by an opponent enjoying a second wind. In other words, it's an anecdote generator.
Oh, what? Huh? How did I meet your grandmother? Oh, children, let me tell you something far more interesting about the time I beat Nathan at Nidhogg 2 for one-on-onesie. Yes, he'd made it to the end screen many times, but somehow I managed to keep beating him back until the time ran out. Of course, we made it to the final duel, and I beat him, and he was furious about it. But I stayed gracious in victory, and that's the lesson here, children. Always be gracious.
No! Thank God! Thank God! You deserve it! You deserve that! Yes! Oh, you scumbag!
Always be a gracious winner. Nidhogg 2, ladies and gentlemen. And so there you are, the top 10 best fighting games on PS4. Let us know in the comments if you agree with our choices. Also, let us know what games we should have put in there, I'm sure you will. Give us a like if you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to click that notification bell so you're always up to date with everything from the world of PlayStation.
PlayStation